الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت يا حي يا قيوم تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا سهلا. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Dear brothers and sisters, I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that all of you are doing well. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and your families, your loved ones, and keep you all in His protective care. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect you in your life, in your health, in your wealth, most importantly in your iman, in your faith, from every harm and every evil. Ameen. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Tonight, inshaAllah, we're going to continue in this series about the perfect names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the name for today is al-Hakam. Al-Hakam. What is the meaning of al-Hakam? Al-Hakam comes from a root word in the Arabic language, ha-ka-ma. And this word means to prevent. That's what it means, to prevent. Al-man' to prevent something. For example, the Arabs would say hikmatud dabba. Hikmatud dabba is a word that refers to the reins of an animal because they prevent the animal from going off the path. Hikmah of the animal. Hikmah meaning the reins because they prevent the animal from going off the path. And the word hikmah means wisdom, right? The word wisdom in the Arabic language is hikmah. Why is it called hikmah? Because hikmah prevents the person from behaving in an ignorant manner or in a foolish manner. That's why they use the word hikmah for that, from prevention as well. A ruler is called a Hakim, because he is expected to prevent corruption and oppression and anarchy and so on. So he's called a Hakim for that reason. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-Hakim, but He is not just al-Hakim, He is al-Hakam. What's the difference? Al-Hakim is the one who judges or rules. Al-Hakam is the one who deserves to judge and rule. Somebody can be Hakim but not deserving of hukum. Allah Azza wa Jal doesn't just rule or judge. He deserves to rule and He deserves to judge. Ala lahul hukm. To Allah belongs the attribute of rule and justice, or being the judge, judgment. So when we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-Hakam, what are we implying? We're implying a few things. We're implying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the arbitrating magistrate who prevents harm and injustice and frivolity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the arbitrating magistrate who prevents harm, who prevents injustice, and who prevents things from happening without purpose, without any wisdom or purpose. When we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-Hakam, what we are implying also is that He is the judge whose ruling cannot be overturned by anyone. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran in Surah Al-An'am in ayah number 114, أَغَيْرَ اللَّهِ أَبْتَغِي حَكَمًا. Should I seek a judge other than Allah? when He is the one who has revealed the book to you, explained in detail. In other words, I should not seek a judge other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the judge who, when He makes a rule, when He pronounces a judgment, when He issues a decree, it cannot be overturned by any judge or any ruler or anyone. That's what we mean when we say He is al-Hakam. And what is also implied when we say that He is al-Hakam is that He subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who judges between His servants as He wills. He is ahkamul hakimin, i.e. the best of judges, which means that He is the one whose judgment is absolutely fair, absolutely just, and absolutely beneficial, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the meaning of al-Hakam, and this is what we mean when we say that Allah Azza wa Jal is al-Hakam. Now, how is this name expressed in our lives, around us, in how we interact with people, do things in our daily lives? How is this name of Allah Azza wa Jal expressed in His creation around us? Well, one way in which this name of Allah Azza wa Jal is expressed is through the divine law, through the Sharia, because the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the law of al-Hakam, and therefore it is the best law. The ulama rahimahumullah ta'ala, they say that the primary objective of the Sharia, the primary maqsad of the Sharia is تحقيق مصالح العباد في المعاش والمعاد. It is the attainment of public interest in this world and the hereafter. The law of Allah, the Sharia, is often misrepresented in the media and often misapplied by people who even call themselves Muslims. The aim of Sharia is not to make life difficult for us. The aim of Sharia is not to spread cruelty on earth. The aim of Sharia is the attainment of public interest, تحقيق مصالح العباد, to fulfill the benefits of people, the interests of mankind. في المعاش والمعاد, in this life and in the hereafter. Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he says in his book I'lam al-Muwaqqi'in, talking about the Sharia, he says, Sharia, all of it, not just a portion of it, all of it is filled with purpose and benefits for the worldly life and the afterlife. All of it is justice. All of it is rahmah. All of it is benefit. And all of it is wisdom. Therefore, he continues and says, if any proposed solution that is deemed a Shari'i solution to any problem, if any proposed solution leads from justice to injustice, from rahmah to its opposite, from benefit to harm, or from wisdom to the lack of wisdom, then that proposed solution has nothing to do with the Sharia, even if it were made to be so by the powers of scholarly interpretation. End quote. What is he saying? He is saying that the divine law is the best law. The divine law, when applied properly, is the best law. And this is one way in which the name al-Hakam is expressed, through the law of al-Hakam. But another way in which this name al-Hakam is expressed is through the divine decree and predestination, al-Qada wal-Qadar. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who assigns causes for their effects. He is the one who assigns causes for their effects. When we take the cause, we achieve the effect. When Allah has assigned this cause to be for this effect. But if He removes that causal relationship, we will not achieve the effect even when we apply the cause. Because He is the one who makes that relationship, who establishes that relationship, and He can choose not to establish that relationship. What am I talking about? I'll give you an example. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed that righteousness is the cause to attain paradise. He is the one who has decreed that wickedness, immorality leads to hellfire. He has assigned that relationship. Immorality is the cause to enter the fire of hell. He is the one who has assigned that medicine is the cause that leads to cure. He is the one who has assigned that poison is the cause that leads to death. And so when we employ these causes, it will lead to the outcome. When we are righteous, we will enter Jannah. If we are immoral, we will enter hell. Wal-iyadhu billah. When we apply medication, we achieve the cure. If we consume poison, it will lead to our death. Why? Because this is the decree of Allah Azza wa Jal. He has assigned this cause for this effect. But this also means that since He is the one who assigns it, He can choose not to assign it. And if He chooses, we may apply the cause, but the effect doesn't come. So, righteousness does not in and of itself guarantee paradise without the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. Unrighteousness in and of itself does not earn hellfire without the justice of Allah Azza wa Jal. Medicine in and of itself does not attain the cure without the shifa, the cure of Allah Azza wa Jal. And poison in and of itself does not lead to death without Allah creating that death in the individual. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who decrees things, and He decrees the causes for the effects, and He establishes the relationship between the cause and the effect. And if He wants to, He can choose not to establish that relationship, subhanahu wa ta'ala, because He is al-Hakam. He is the one who is the judge. He is the one who rules. He is the one who decrees these things. So one way in which also this name of Allah Azza wa Jal is expressed is through the divine decree and predestination, al-Hakam. So anytime we see things happening around us that we perceive, that we realize to be the divine decree playing out in front of us, we should realize that that is actually an expression of al-Hakam doing His work, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, to conclude, two things. How do we connect with this name? And how do we cultivate the meaning of this name in our own lives? So, number one, how do we connect with this name, al-Hakam? A few things. Number one way to connect with this name is by avoiding seeking judgment from anyone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What do I mean by that? we should consider the law of Allah to be supreme over any man-made law. We must, as believers in Allah as being al-Hakam, we must believe that the law of Allah, the divine law, is supreme over any man-made law. And therefore, instead of seeking judgment by man-made laws, we should seek judgment by the law of Allah Azza wa Jal whenever it is possible. Of course, when it's not possible, it's not possible, and we have to be law-abiding citizens wherever we live. But we still have to recognize and believe from the bottom of our hearts that the law that is the best and that is supreme is the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's number one. This is one way in which we connect with this name al-Hakam. Number two, we must refer back to Allah to resolve our disputes. Whenever we have a dispute, at any level, at the international and national levels, or at the communal level, or at the communal level or family level even, when we have disputes, when we get into disputes with people, we should go back and see, what does Allah say about this situation? Let's refer back to the book of Allah. Let's refer back to the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Let's refer back to how the scholars of this ummah have interpreted the Quran and the sunnah as pertaining to this situation that we are facing in our dispute. Let's go and talk to a scholar of Islam to resolve this dispute. This, when we do that, we are actively affirming that Allah is the arbitrating magistrate, that He is al-Hakam, that He is the judge that we will go to resolve our disputes. But if, while we are disputing with one another, if one side suggests that, look, shouldn't we consider what the Quran says? Shouldn't we consider what the Hadith says? Shouldn't we consider what the shuyukh, what the ulama have said? And the other person says, don't bring those things into this argument. Then that's not a good sign. Because then we are not willing to refer back to Allah and His Messenger to resolve our dispute. We want our ego to drive the solution. Number three, the third way in which we connect with this name al-Hakam is by submitting to the judgments of Allah. By submitting to the judgments of Allah, which include His decree, which include the divine decree, the qada and qadar of Allah Azza wa Jal. When we submit to His judgments, when we submit to His decree, when we are pleased with His judgments and His decree, and when we do not complain about His judgments and His decree, that's when we are connecting with al-Hakam. Al-Hakam. Because then we are actively affirming that He is the one who deserves to rule, to judge, and to decree. And lastly, the way we connect with the name al-Hakam is by relying on Him in all matters, in every issue of our lives. Because He is the one who is al-Hakam, and therefore He is the one that we should rely on and on no one else. So this is how we connect with this name al-Hakam. How do we cultivate the meaning of this name in our own lives? Simple. And this is the last thing, inshallah, and then we will close. The way that we cultivate this name al-Hakam in our lives is by being fair in our judgments. When we judge between people in issues, in matters, that we are fair and not biased towards this person or this group or that group, because this is my relative, because that person speaks my language, because that person comes from the same nationality as me. When I judge, when I elect someone in an election, when I'm asked to vote, cast my vote, I cast my vote with fairness, choosing the best candidate, because this person has the most qualification to be in this position. That's just an example. There are so many examples that can be given. The point is, be fair in your judgment. Don't be biased, so that others can trust you to mediate between their problems, their disputes. They can trust you to mediate between them with fairness and justice. When you gain that reputation, then you are exemplifying the meaning of al-Hakam in your own life at your own human level. And this is what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did. Even before he was given prophethood, he had this reputation among his people. He was called as-Sadiq al-Amin, the truthful, the trustworthy. People trusted him, and people trusted his arbitration. So that when they were rebuilding the Kaaba, and you know this story, when they were rebuilding the Kaaba and they got into a dispute about who is going to place that black stone in its place. Everybody wanted to do it. So they said, look, we'll wait and see who is the first person to enter the masjid. Whoever it is, we will make him the judge, the Hakam. We'll make him the arbitrator between us. And so when they saw Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, who at that time was Muhammad ibn Abdullah, enter al-Masjid al-Haram, they were all very happy. And they said, as-Sadiq al-Amin, yes, he will definitely give us a fair solution to this problem. And they happily made him the arbitrator in their dispute, and he resolved that dispute in a way that was so fair, that was so noble, and that satisfied everybody. Right? He gained that reputation. Why? Because of his character. And he got to a point where people happily made him the Hakam, made him the arbitrator in their disputes. We ought to strive to do the same in our lives. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among those who listen to the words of admonition and follow the best of them. Wallahu ta'ala a'la wa a'lam. Wa sallallahu wa sallim wa barik ala Sayyidina Mawlana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.